All right, this is the fourth and final leg of the genetics problems lab, and we're going to start with another pedigree. And this one gives us the opportunity to determine whether or not we're looking at a sex-linked trait or a standard autosomal trait, and then whether or not it's dominant or recessive. So we know that in a sex-linked trait or X-linked, which is specific about that in this case, it's going to show up more in males. And that is definitely the case. So we can determine, or at least lean toward this being X-linked, and it would be recessive because if it were dominant, then it would have to show up in the parent generation as well, and it's not in this case. So the best answer here is X-linked recessive. And for whatever reason, when this was converted for these slides, these right here showed up in white. Just ignore that. I think that's just a glitch with the image in this particular format. All right, so now we're asked, what's the genotype of the first individual in generation 1? Well, the first individual in generation 1, reading from left to right, is this female. And her genotype, well, let's look at what his would be because that's easier with sex-linked. If he's not showing the trait, then we know for sure that his is this, and hers would have to be heterozygous because she's not showing the trait, so she can't be homozygous recessive, and she was able to pass this allele on to these boys, so she has to have it, so she can't be homozygous dominant either. So that her genotype is heterozygous. If a woman who's a carrier for this trait had children with the first individual in the third generation, so that would be this individual, what proportion of their children is expected to show this trait? All right, a woman that's a carrier, so let's figure out what our cross is. So a woman that's a carrier would be this genotype crossed with this guy. Well, here's dad in this cross. Oh, that doesn't look like an X. And mom could really be either one of these. But for this guy to not be showing the trait, he has to have a normal X. All right, so what proportion of their children, it doesn't ask male or female, just generally speaking, what proportion of their children? Well, let's do a Punnett square. I've got more space up here, so I'm going to do it over here to remember what my genotypes are. All right, so to show this trait, which I think it was, the pointy ears trait? Yes, so R for pointy-shaped ears. The only one that's going to show this trait is this male. So 25% of the children are going to show the trait because this is homozygous dominant for normal. This male has the normal allele, and this female is heterozygous for normal, so she'll be a carrier, but she's going to show the trait. What proportion of their sons? Well, only these two boxes represent boys, so it's 25% of children in general, 50% of sons. All right, so next, construct a pedigree to answer the following question. Red-green colorblindness is an X-linked recessive trait. A woman who has a colorblind mother and father with a colorblind mother and a father with normal vision has a son with a man with normal vision. What is the chance the son is colorblind? So we've got to work backwards a little bit. Let's make the key first. All right, a woman who has a colorblind mother. So let's do this cross first. So a colorblind mother would have to have two X chromosomes with the recessive allele. And a father with normal color vision, he would have to have the normal allele on his one X chromosome. So she's going to be this genotype, because she had to inherit an X from dad, so it had to be that one. And she inherited an X from mom. Well, they're both the same, so it had to be that one. So this is her genotype. And she has a son with a man with normal vision. Well, his genotype has to be this, because it's the only way. I'll make that X for the cross a little smaller so it's not confusing. So it has to be, this has to be his genotype. So now we know what the parental genotypes that they're asking us about are. We can set up our cross. Punnett square. Oops. All right. And the question is, what is the chance that the son is colorblind? All right, so we're looking just here at the sons, because that's the Y chromosome, and 50% are normal and 50% are colorblind. So the answer is 50%. 50% chance. Susie gets pregnant and convinces Steve to marry her. Steve is suspicious that the baby is not his and orders a blood test. Susie has type AB blood, so she has this genotype. And Steve has heterozygous type A blood. That's his. And the baby's blood type is homozygous for B. Is Steve a possible father of Susie's baby? Okay, so and then ask another question, but let's answer that one first. Okay, so Steve doesn't have a B to give. So he cannot be the father of this baby. It's not Steve. And I'll do the cross just in case you need to see it. So the cross between Steve, this is Steve, and Susie, would result in this outcome. So the baby could be B blood type, but not homozygous B. So it can't be Steve. What different genotypes could it be? Well, here's the mom. All right, so this is essentially out because there's no way to get two alleles for B if this allele is the one that winds up in her egg. But we've got something to work with over here. So we'd have to have at least one of these. And then it could be here, because then we would still have a possibility right here. So one possibility is all right, let's look for another possibility. Of course, this could be a possibility because then you're going to increase the chances. So the dad's blood type could also be or in which case you'd have this. But you're still going to have at least one possibility of the homozygous B type. So these are the possibilities, not Steve's. All right, so that is it. That was the last problem for the Genetics Problems Lab. Now that you have watched this video through and hopefully worked all of these problems, you can reach out by email by email is fine, and let me know if you need extra help. I could send you a video addressing just your question. We could set up a Zoom meeting if we want to work face-to-face, or if you give me your phone number, I will give you a call and you can get additional help that way. But just reach out by email. I will check my email every day during this time, and just because we don't have the regular face-to-face meeting, especially with the test coming up next Friday. So I'll check my email, and you can reach out there if you need to have some more questions answered or need more help with these problems. Once you have finished the video, worked through the problems, you need to go to the discussion board and post a response to that question, because that's how you'll get credit for your participation in this lab. Thank you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and study for your exam.